All right. Hi everyone. I'm Sermilian, and today I would like to talk to you about AI. Not in particular about AI, about one part of the usage of the AI, in particular the skills, right? So everyone knows what are the skills, or if you don't know it, if you use some kind of AI agents like Claude Code or Codex, OpenCode, Juni, whatever, right? I kind of used all of them. There's these things that are called skills, and I ignored them in the beginning for quite a while, and then I decided to do some easy things to kind of automate my flow. So one of the first things that I've created probably was a skill for code review. Each AI agent already has a code review skill their own, but I wanted to create something my own, curated for Android development in particular. So I kind of collected best practices from the built-in skills of agents. In particular, I really liked how Codex does code review, because it kind of goes in depth and looks at the context around the code that it reviews. At least that's how I felt like when I was using it versus the Claude Code. And things might have changed already, right? Because it's been quite a while since I've been using the built-in ones, but like a half a year ago maybe, that was my impression, and that's why I kind of liked the Codex, the code review skills. So I kind of looked into what it does, and then added my own expertise of Android development. And yeah, I asked AI to create a code review skill based on my own preferences, right? I wanted it to kind of look into everything in a structured way, to review the UI, to review the view model setup, and MVVM, MVVI, right? The architecture, to enforce clean architecture boundaries, making sure that there's no leakage between the layers, and so on. Once I did that, I kind of started comparing the code review skills for Codex, Claude, my own. I kind of found some things were better in my skills, some things were worse, and it kind of became this iterative approach, iterative process, I guess, right? Where I would do code review, I would then do my own review of my code, not my code, the code that AI agent wrote. And every time I found something missing in the code review skill, I would tell AI, hey, you missed this, this, and that. Let's kind of utilize those findings, what you didn't find, and improve this code review skill. And it was kind of double-sided sword. What is the saying? Double-sided sword or whatever. I mean, it was a good thing and a bad thing as well, right? Because I kept adding stuff, but at the same time the skill itself kind of kept getting larger, and I know now it's not such a big of a problem because we have Claude with 1 million contexts, but back then, especially if you use things like Copilot, I think it had like 120k context. It was kind of problematic, right? So double-edged sword, right? That's what it's called. I continued these iterations, and at some point I came to a code review which was better than Claude or Codex, and it was really well designed for my type of projects that I'm doing, right? Like the Android development, Kotlin multi-platform. And right, it became my go-to skill basically to use after each iteration. And I think that was first serious experience for me and how to use skills properly. And of course, after that, it kind of clicked in my brain, right? Hey, this is quite powerful. And I started just creating a bunch of other skills that save a ton of time for me. One of which is quite small, but such a powerful one, is create a PR, write a description. Sounds simple, but like it actually looks at the changes, it writes the description, it has a section for feature flag if it was set, it has the testing steps, for the feature, have to test it for other people, right? And some checklist. So all of that is done automatically, and using the GitHub CLI tool, it actually creates the PR, setups everything. Like, it saves ton of time once it kind of stops stacking up, right? Like, because while you're gonna write the description by hand, while you're gonna come up with the testing steps, then you use your GitHub add, you come up with the commit message, then you think about like what's the best title for this PR, then you use the commands to push it, you create the PR. It's even the description itself long, like how I describe it. So it's a solid, I don't know, 5 to 10 minute process to create a proper PR, to come up with good title, good commit messages and everything, because those things really matter. Including myself, a lot of people would just create a PR and don't think about that much, but once you start properly doing it, you realize how valuable it is, especially for the team members of your team. So, but that's beside the point, right? That's not the main point. I started accumulating a lot of skills, but at the same time, we all know how the AI world works, right? Codex is cool now. Tomorrow Claude releases something, and then there's some new thing comes out. I never buy year-long subscriptions because I constantly keep jumping. I have €100 subscription for Codex, but next month I'm going to use Claude because they have a new model now, and I want to use it for 4 months and see how the limits work, right? So it's all constant switching. At some point I switched to GLM because I wanted to try it. Didn't really like it, right? So switched back. I used Copilot for a few months, like for 3-4 months as well. But that's a whole other sad story because it's kind of unusable now. But yeah, and it became a real problem because every time I switched to a project, I would need to kind of move the skills to that new agent, right? And then move them back, and like it's very annoying because at some point, if you switched enough, you have those skill copies all over the place, and you kind of forget which ones are the actual ones, the up-to-date skills, right? So that was a problem, and I started thinking like, hey, how do I solve this issue? Like, how do I make it so that I can easily switch between agents and make sure that all of my skills will be always up to date with all of the agents, right? And one thing that came into my mind was like, hey, in my projects, I have agents.md set up where I write everything for the AI agent, like the description of the project, references to documentation, and how to work, what to load, and blah blah blah, right? Like that stuff. And I had Claude.md, which was just a symlink to that agents.md. Claude.md is a specific file that Claude uses, and I was like, hey, that's great. Like, why don't I just put all of my skills into a single directory, which is the source of truth of the skills, and I just create symlinks to each agent's folders, right? So now I can just do that once and totally forget about everything, because if I modify the actual source of truth skill files, next time I launch the agent, any AI agent that I have installed, it will just pick up those changes because it's symlinks, right? And the only thing was that every time I create a new skill, I would need to remember to symlink them back. And in order to solve that, I basically created a skill for myself for creating the skill, and I would say like, hey, here is like a skill that I've created, and I want to symlink it to all the agents that I have. I would basically do that, and it will detect what agents I have and create the symlinks automatically. And I kind of it was a habit for me now. Every time I create a skill, I would just run this synchronization skill basically, and so far it's been working great, and I never had any problems with keeping skills, up to date or in sync between agents. And now I constantly switch between Codex, Claude, Juni, OpenCode, like I use OpenCode sometimes with local models, but just for experimentation because it doesn't really work that well. Yeah, but that's been working great for me, and maybe you should try that as well. Let me know how it works, because for me it's been working great. And this whole thing that I just described became such a rabbit hole for me that you're not going to believe what it turned to in the end. And I'm going to eventually tell you what it is, but this is how my journey basically started with the skills and everything. I hope it's still recording. Yeah, it became such a rabbit hole for me, and the whole side project with so many interesting learnings and experiences basically. And I hope that in the next videos that come, I can share those experiences with you and they are useful. But for now, yeah, try this. Symlinks are amazing, Symlinks are great, and they solve a real problem. Hope this was useful to you, and if you like it, see you next time. Bye.